Pregnant wife catches millionaire on vacation with mistress. The ending is unbelievable. You will not believe what happens when a young, unsuspecting wife, pregnant and hopelessly in love, discovers her wealthy husband's secret getaway with a breathtakingly beautiful mistress. It's the kind of story that defies explanation. A millionaire who can afford to hide his tracks, a loyal wife who risks everything to uncover the truth, and a mistress who thinks she's got it all. As tensions rise and hearts break, you'll see betrayal, redemption, and jaw-dropping twists that seem too wild to be real. Stay tuned, because this saga will challenge every assumption you've ever had about love, loyalty, and the price of deception. Michelle Brown stood in the center of her immaculately designed living room, a faint tremor in her hands as she stroked the curve of her pregnant belly. The sun poured in through the panoramic windows, illuminating the plush couches, the sleek marble floors, and the tasteful decor that she had painstakingly chosen with her husband, Stephen Brown. Everything about their penthouse screamed success and style, the kind of success that often arrived alongside the relentless gossip and unwelcome scrutiny of the ultra-rich. And yet, for Michelle, it was just home. It was supposed to be the safe place where she could start the next chapter of her life, a chapter that included motherhood and the promise of a strong family bond. Even as she tried to maintain her composure, Michelle's thoughts swirled. She had caught wind of rumors that her husband, the charismatic millionaire entrepreneur Stephen Brown, had been seen boarding a private jet to an exotic location with a woman who wasn't her. At first, she dismissed it as nothing more than idle chatter from the tabloids or jealous acquaintances who thrived on stirring trouble among the wealthy. But then she saw the manila envelope on their dining table, discreetly placed there by one of her closest friends, Anna Kingston, a friend who also happened to be the personal assistant of Stephen's longtime business partner. Inside that envelope were photographs. Stephen and another woman, whose name appeared to be Sasha Morgan, strolling hand in hand at an exclusive Caribbean resort called the Jade Lagoon. The final picture in the stack showed them gazing into each other's eyes, locked in an unmistakably intimate moment. Michelle pressed a hand to her mouth, steeling herself to remain calm. Her pregnancy made emotional turbulence risky. She knew she had to keep a level head, not just for her own well-being, but for the baby's. With her heart hammering in her chest, she picked up her phone and dialed Anna's number. Her voice trembled as she asked for details, unsure if she even wanted the answers. Anna's voice was subdued, edged with pity. "Michelle," she said, "I'm so sorry you had to see those photos." The news started circulating around the office just a few days ago. People have been whispering. Stephen didn't exactly try to hide it from everyone except you. When I found out, I knew I had to tell you. Her friend's sincerity and the heartbreak in her voice were undeniable. Michelle hated the feeling of vulnerability that overcame her. She thanked Anna, hung up, then allowed a single tear to trace down her cheek before collecting herself. She wasn't just a grieving wife, she was the mother of Stephen's unborn child. She would find out the truth, and she would do it on her own terms. If the rumors were false, she could move forward with a clean conscience. If they were true, she would be prepared to confront her husband directly. The next day, Michelle recalled moments in her marriage that, in hindsight, might have been red flags. Stephen had returned from business trips with vague alibis of late meetings and unexpected delays. His phone seemed permanently attached to him, guarded by passwords that changed monthly. She remembered fleeting glances at suspicious text messages Stephen had always brushed off with a quick, dismissive explanation. Still, Michelle had always believed in the vow they shared when they were married in a lavish ceremony at the Redwood estate. She trusted him because, in her mind, trust was a choice. She had no desire to sabotage their relationship by turning paranoid or accusatory. In the world of the wealthy, especially for someone like Stephen, who made his first fortune in venture capital, by the age of 30 opportunists and sycophants lurked in every corner. Michelle knew there were countless women eager to attach themselves to a man of influence and money. But Stephen had always reassured her that he was loyal. "I'd be a fool to throw this away," he used to say, drawing her into a kiss. So Michelle had decided to believe him. Now, standing in the middle of a living room that felt far emptier than it had the day before, she realized she needed more than reassurance. She needed proof. She had to see everything with her own eyes. Gathering her courage, she made a plan to confront Stephen on neutral ground, away from the household staff and the looming presence of the city's paparazzi. She dialed his personal assistant's number, a woman named Claire Henderson, to ask about his schedule. Predictably, Claire informed her that Stephen was away on a business retreat in the Caribbean. Michelle asked if she could join him there, and Claire hemmed and hawed, eventually feigning ignorance. That alone was enough to confirm Michelle's suspicions. She decided to contact an old acquaintance, Lucas Grant, a seasoned private investigator known for his discretion. Lucas had helped one of Michelle's close friends navigate a messy divorce from a similarly unfaithful partner. He came highly recommended, though his services were notoriously expensive. But if there was anything Michelle had, it was money, and a burning desire for the truth. She wouldn't have batted an eye at spending a fortune to protect her child's future. When Lucas arrived at the penthouse, he was the epitome of professionalism: crisp suit, well-trimmed beard, and a firm handshake. He took a seat on the sofa, his posture perfectly erect, conveying his unwavering focus. Michelle explained her situation, her voice heavy with tension. Lucas listened intently, jotting down notes in a small leather-bound notebook. By the time she finished, tears hovered in the corners of her eyes, but her voice was resolute. "I need to know everything," she told him, "and I'm prepared to go there myself." Lucas raised an eyebrow. "Michelle, that might be risky," he said. "Given your condition, traveling might not be easy." She cupped her pregnant belly protectively. "I'll do whatever it takes. My baby deserves the truth, deserves a father who is honest. If he's not honest, I need to know what steps to take for our future." Lucas nodded, respecting her resolve. He promised to conduct preliminary surveillance, gather details, and prepare the ground for her arrival, if that was what she truly wanted. But as Michelle lay in bed that night, her mind swarming with apprehension, it wasn't just about a cheating husband. It was about betrayal, deception, and the heart-wrenching possibility that the man she had built her life with was someone she no longer knew. Days later, Michelle got the call she had been dreading. Lucas's voice was calm yet grave. "I'm at the Jade Lagoon. I've confirmed that Stephen is indeed here with a woman named Sasha Morgan. They're registered under an alias, but it's definitely him. I have photos, room logs, the works." Michelle's hands shook, though she tried to remain composed. "I'm coming down." Lucas hesitated. "Are you sure? It might be tough on you, physically and emotionally. This place isn't exactly a quick trip away. It's a secluded resort on a private island." Michelle's voice was firm. "Book me a flight, Lucas. I'll handle the rest." "I'm not leaving my child's future to speculation." The journey to the Caribbean was longer than Michelle expected, fraught with tension and a swirl of conflicting emotions. She kept her departure a secret from everyone except Anna, whom she trusted implicitly. Anna helped her arrange a private plane. Being the friend of an heiress had its advantages. During the flight, Michelle stared out the window at cotton candy clouds drifting below. She recalled the early days of her relationship with Stephen, how charming he had been, how he'd built her trust brick by brick until she believed nothing could shake it. Now, she felt each of those bricks crumbling under the weight of what she had discovered. Upon landing at a small airstrip near the Jade Lagoon, Michelle was met by Lucas, who ushered her into a discreet SUV. "We'll head to a private villa I rented under a false name," he said quietly, his voice tinged with concern. "We need to keep this low-key. Stephen has connections everywhere." Michelle nodded. Her heart pounded in her chest, in sync with each bump in the road as they traversed dense, tropical foliage toward the famed resort. The Jade Lagoon was known for its exclusive clientele and their clandestine affairs. Nobody asked questions here, because everyone came with secrets they preferred kept under wraps. They passed the main entrance, a grand arch of tropical flowers, and a winding driveway lined with towering palm trees. Everything about this place oozed luxury, from the shimmering lagoon at its heart to the discreet staff who were well practiced in giving guests space and privacy. The sun was just setting, painting the sky in warm orange and pink hues. It was paradisiacal, the perfect backdrop for romance or betrayal. Once settled in the rented villa, Lucas spread out a series of photographs and notes on the dining table. Michelle braced herself to look. There was Stephen laughing with Sasha at one of the lagoon's private cabanas. Another shot showed them dancing in what appeared to be a beachfront party, his arms wrapped around her waist. The final image, the one that nearly broke Michelle's heart, depicted Sasha wearing a diamond necklace that Michelle recognized all too well. Stephen had once mentioned wanting to gift it to someone special. Michelle had assumed that someone would be her. She shut her eyes, inhaling deeply to keep her composure. "When is the last time you saw them?" she whispered. "This afternoon," Lucas replied. They'd been spending most of their time around a private bungalow at the far edge of the resort. "I have some audio recordings too, though they're mostly muffled. It's clear they're together in a romantic capacity." A lump formed in Michelle's throat. So it was real. The man she had promised to love forever was in another woman's arms, flaunting their relationship at this lavish haven of hedonism. She opened her eyes, a fierce determination igniting within them. "I want to catch him in the act," she said. "I want him to see me, face to face, so he can't deny what he's done." Lucas hesitated again. "Michelle, the first understand your need for confrontation, but remember your health. This could be dangerous for you and the baby." Stephen might not react well when cornered. Her voice trembled, though not with fear. This was pure resolve. He can handle it however he wants. "I'm not leaving without answers." The next day, Michelle disguised herself in a loose sundress, a wide-brimmed hat, and oversized sunglasses. Lucas accompanied her as she navigated the resort's pathways, framed by lush greenery and the faint sound of steel drums playing in the background. Her belly was more pronounced now, nearly 6 months along, but the loose fabric helped conceal her pregnancy from passing glances. They reached an oceanfront bar where Lucas had tracked Stephen and Sasha earlier in the morning. Michelle's heart hammered like a drum. She scanned the crowd, couples sipping cocktails, a group of well-dressed vacationers dancing near a DJ booth, staff weaving through the throng. Then she saw him. Stephen was leaning against the polished mahogany bar, wearing a casual linen shirt that highlighted his athletic frame. Next to him stood a tall, slender brunette in a white bikini cover-up, her long hair cascading down her back like a waterfall. Sasha. Michelle swallowed hard, her palms slick with sweat. There was Stephen, her husband, tilting his head intimately toward Sasha, whispering something that made Sasha laugh and place a hand on his shoulder. The moment was so ordinary yet profoundly earth-shattering. Michelle was torn between rage and despair. She reminded herself she had come here for answers. She moved closer, weaving between guests until she was just a few feet away. Sasha was the first to notice her. The brunette's smile wavered, her eyes darting nervously from Michelle to Stephen. Her expression shifted to confusion, as though she recognized the resemblance in Michelle's features from pictures of the happy couple that had occasionally surfaced in the media. Stephen turned to see what had captured Sasha's attention. When his eyes landed on Michelle's face, his expression morphed from relaxed contentment to sheer astonishment. In that split second, he looked exactly like a man with a guilty conscience caught red-handed. His jaw went slack, eyes wide, and he fumbled with the glass in his hand. "Michelle," he stammered. He looked at her stomach, hidden beneath her dress, but he already knew about her pregnancy. It was impossible not to. "What are you doing here?" She couldn't keep the tremor out of her voice. "I could ask you the same thing." For a moment, the entire world seemed to slow. Sasha glanced at Stephen, searching for cues on how to react, while Stephen stared at Michelle as though she were an apparition. The guests around them continued to laugh and dance, blissfully unaware of the tempest brewing at the bar. Then, a jolt. Stephen reached for Michelle's arm, as if to steer her away from prying eyes. "Let's go somewhere private to talk," he mumbled, voice low and urgent. Sasha, left behind at the bar, looked stricken. Michelle allowed herself to be guided down a secluded pathway lined with tropical flora. Heart pounding, she finally found the words she'd bottled up for days. "I believed in you," she said, her voice filled with hurt. "You told me you were at a business retreat. This is what your business retreat looks like." Stephen struggled to compose himself. "Look, Michelle, it's complicated. You shouldn't have come here in your condition." She flinched. "My condition? You mean being pregnant with your child? Don't you dare use my pregnancy as a smokescreen for your betrayal." Stephen's eyes flickered with shame, or perhaps anger. Michelle couldn't quite tell. He was a master at masking his emotions, a skill that had served him well in high-stakes negotiations. But now, cornered by his own wife, he fumbled. "I never wanted you to find out like this," he began haltingly. "Sasha and I, W.E., met at a charity gala a few months ago. Things just happened." She shook her head in disbelief. "Things don't just happen. You made a choice." Tears burned at the corners of her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "Was I not enough for you, Stephen? Was our unborn child not enough to keep you loyal?" He opened his mouth, but words failed him. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. "I'm sorry," he finally said. "It's just, I've been feeling trapped, pressured. The business, the baby, our lifestyle. I needed an escape." Michelle felt her hand tighten into a fist. "So you chose this escape," she said bitterly. "Look me in the eye and tell me if you love her." Stephen sighed. "It's not about love. It's about wanting something for myself, something that wasn't predetermined by a board meeting or by the demands of a marriage that's always under public scrutiny. You have no idea what it's like to." She slapped him before he could finish. The impact was muted by the cacophony of the nearby ocean waves, but the sting was tangible. "Don't you dare blame me for your actions," she hissed. "You think this marriage was easy for me? I've sacrificed my career, my privacy, my life to stand by your side. And now, when I need you most, you run off with someone else?" Stephen rubbed his cheek, anger mingling with guilt in his eyes. But before he could speak again, Michelle turned on her heel and stormed away, tears finally streaming down her face. She knew the confrontation wasn't over, but she needed space to breathe, to think, and to protect her unborn child from the roiling storm of emotions that threatened to consume her. Michelle spent that night in the rented villa, pacing the floor as Lucas watched from a respectful distance. She tried to eat dinner, but every bite felt like ash in her mouth. The confrontation had been worse than she imagined, not just for what was said, but for the glaring confirmation that Stephen was in deeper than a mere fling. The man she loved had chosen someone else while she carried his child. Early the next morning, Michelle received an unexpected knock on the door. Startled, she beckoned Lucas to answer it. Standing in the doorway was Sasha Morgan, her eyes filled with anxiety. She looked far less confident than she had the night before. Dressed in a simple sundress, her posture was tense. She asked if she could speak with Michelle alone. Unsure of her motives but too curious to refuse, Michelle stepped onto the villa's veranda, instructing Lucas to remain inside. A slight breeze rustled the palm trees overhead, carrying with it the scent of salt and tropical blooms. Sasha seemed uncertain how to start, fidgeting with the fringe of her dress. Finally she managed, "Michelle, the first one to say, I'm sorry. I didn't know you were pregnant." Michelle's face hardened. "Does it matter? Married is married. You knew he wasn't a free man." Sasha's eyes dropped. "Yes, I did, but Stephen made it sound like your marriage was effectively over. He never mentioned the baby until last night." A wave of conflicting emotions welled up in Michelle's chest. She studied Sasha, seeing not just a mistress, but a woman who had fallen for a polished lie. Or maybe Sasha was lying now. Michelle couldn't be sure. "Why are you here?" she asked, her tone clipped. Sasha hesitated. "Because I need you to know that I'm not here to break your family. I developed real feelings for Stephen, and I thought he felt the same. Now I see how messed up everything is. He lied to you, and he lied to me too." Michelle's voice was icy. "What do you want from me? Forgiveness? Some measure of absolution?" Sasha looked hurt. "No, he's spiraling, Michelle. His business deals are in a precarious state, and he's under a lot of pressure to secure a new round of funding. I think he's cracking under it. He told me he needed an escape, and that's what this was supposed to be. But I see now that this has gone way beyond a fling. It's become destructive for everyone involved." Michelle's nails dug into her palms. So that was Stephen's perspective. She and the baby were burdens, and Sasha was an escape. "If you really cared about not breaking up our family, you wouldn't have come here with him," she said, quietly, with an edge that made Sasha wince. Before Sasha could respond, a thunderous voice shattered the moment. It was Stephen striding onto the veranda, wearing a white shirt that billowed in the morning breeze. His face was contorted with anger and something akin to desperation. He shot Sasha an accusatory glare, then turned to Michelle. "What is this?" he demanded. "Are you two ganging up on me?" Michelle folded her arms protectively over her belly. "You brought all of this on yourself, Stephen. Don't you dare play the victim." Stephen's gaze flickered over Sasha, who looked like she wanted to vanish into thin air. Then he focused on Michelle, seemingly torn between contrition and defiance. "I never intended for this to blow up in my face like this," he said. "But you both decided to have a little meeting behind my back?" Sasha tried to interrupt. "I just wanted to," he cut her off, voice rising. "No, Sasha, you said you'd stay discreet. Now you're dragging Michelle into this. What were you thinking?" A tremor of fear passed through Sasha's eyes. "I'm not dragging anyone. She has a right to know." Stephen looked ready to snap. Michelle could practically see him wrestling with the situation, trying to salvage a sense of control. He pointed at Sasha. "We need to talk alone." Michelle felt her heart tighten. She was about to protest when she saw Sasha's lips compress into a thin line. Sasha appeared genuinely unsettled by Stephen's raging temper. In that moment, Michelle realized something crucial. No matter how strong or resolute Stephen seemed, he was on unstable footing. And it wasn't just about their marriage or the affair. Something deeper was unraveling inside him. "You can talk all you want, Stephen," Michelle said, stepping closer. "But don't think for a second that you can intimidate me or Sasha into staying silent about what you've done. I will protect my child, and if you try to bully me into submission, you'll find out exactly how much I'm capable of fighting back." Sasha's eyes filled with tears. Stephen looked at them both, then spun on his heel and stormed away, muttering curses under his breath. Sasha took a step backward, clearly shaken, then mumbled a quick apology to Michelle and hurried after him. Michelle watched them go, a disquieting sense of foreboding creeping in. Beneath the veneer of wealth and glamour, something dangerous lurked, simmering like a volcano about to erupt. She just hoped she could get out of this place with her sanity and her baby's safety intact. Back inside, Lucas approached quietly. I saw him storm out. "Are you okay?" he asked. Concern etched across his usually stoic features. Michelle exhaled, struggling to keep tears at bay. "No, I'm not. But I have to be strong." Lucas nodded, then pulled out his phone. "I've been digging deeper into Stephen's finances and business deals, like you asked. It's complicated, but it looks like there's more trouble than he's letting on, trouble that could affect you and the baby if his empire crashes." Michelle's pulse quickened. "What do you mean?" Lucas scrolled through documents on his phone. He's on the verge of losing a major investment that was supposed to fund his next venture. Investors have been spooked by rumors of misconduct, maybe personal or professional. We're not sure yet. If this next deal falls through, he's going to have liquidity issues. Enough to put your joint assets at risk if he's leveraged them. Michelle sank onto a chair, feeling suddenly lightheaded. All her life, she had believed Stephen was a financial wizard who always knew how to land on his feet. "He never told me," she said, swallowing hard. "I knew he was stressed, but I didn't realize it was that serious." Lucas placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "That's why you hired me. I'll keep digging, but you need to consider your options. If he's lying about his affair, he could be lying about the state of your finances too." Michelle felt anger surge through her. She had trusted Stephen implicitly, believing he would always safeguard their future. Now it seemed he'd risked everything for an affair, for a misguided attempt at escaping responsibilities. "Keep searching," she told Lucas, her voice steely. "I want the full picture." That evening, the sky erupted into a watercolor painting of oranges, pinks, and purples. Michelle tried to find some solace in the breathtaking view from her villa's balcony, but the turmoil in her heart remained as fierce as ever. She dialed Anna's number, needing a familiar voice to anchor her. When Anna picked up, the relief in Michelle's sigh was palpable. "Tell me everything," Anna insisted gently. Michelle recounted the confrontation at the bar, Sasha's unexpected visit, and the ominous possibility that Stephen's business empire might be crumbling. Her friend listened quietly, interjecting only to voice her shock or to offer a comforting murmur. Finally, Anna said, "Michelle, you need to leave. Come back to the city. You're pregnant, and this stress is dangerous for both you and the baby. There's nothing more you can do there." Michelle closed her eyes, pressing her palm against her belly. "I can't leave yet, Anna. I need closure. I need to hear Stephen admit it all. And if I come home, it'll look like I'm surrendering or running away, and the tabloids will spin their own story. I have to do this on my terms." Anna hesitated. "I understand. Just promise me you'll be careful." Michelle promised, but a small voice inside her whispered that being careful might not be enough. The next morning, Michelle was awakened by a sharp knock at her villa's door. She groaned, swinging her legs out of bed, her belly heavy as she tried to rise. Lucas was already at the door, conversing in hushed tones with someone. When Michelle entered the living area, she found Sasha again, looking even more distraught than before. "I'm sorry to disturb you," Sasha began, voice trembling, "but I had nowhere else to go." Lucas eyed her warily. "What's going on?" Sasha glanced around, as though fearful of being overheard. "Stephen's lost it. He's raging about how everything is falling apart. Last night, he grabbed my wrists so hard he left bruises. He kept yelling that I betrayed him by talking to Michelle, that this was all my fault." She held out her arm, revealing dark finger-shaped marks. Michelle felt her heart skip a beat. She knew Stephen could be abrasive, but this was new territory. "Why are you telling us this?" Sasha bit her lip, tears threatening to spill over. "Because this is all spiraling out of control. I was prepared for an affair, for some secrecy, but not violence, and not with a pregnant wife involved. I'm in over my head. He's threatening to ruin me if I leave. He says he'll use his money and connections to destroy my life." Michelle glanced at Lucas, who gave a subtle nod. It seemed plausible Stephen, cornered and desperate, might turn vindictive. After all, reputation was everything in his world. But could he really go so far? Sasha continued. I don't want to be with him anymore, Michelle. The first swear. But I need a way out, some kind of protection. And I can help you. Michelle's eyebrows shot up. Help me how? Sasha reached into her purse and retrieved a slim voice recorder. I have audio recordings. Stephen confided in me about his business troubles. He also said some horrible things about you, about how he'd handle it if you ever found out about the affair. Michelle's stomach twisted. Part of her didn't want to hear those ugly truths. But if Stephen was indeed spiraling out of control, these recordings could prove valuable both legally and emotionally. Why would you record him? She asked, suspicious. Sasha's hands shook. Because I'm not stupid. I knew this affair could blow up in my face. I needed leverage in case Stephen tried to throw me under the bus. I never expected it to come to this, though. Lucas stepped in, his voice measured. We'll take those recordings, but we need to verify them. You understand, I'm sure. Sasha nodded quickly. Yes, of course. Michelle studied the younger woman's face, seeing genuine fear etched across her features. She wondered if Sasha was truly remorseful or just desperate, but her gut told her Sasha was sincere. All right, Michelle said softly, give us what you have. In return, we'll help you get off this island. Lucas can arrange safe transportation, can't you? Lucas nodded. I'll make some calls. A flicker of relief passed across Sasha's eyes. Thank you, she whispered. I'll do whatever it takes. I'm done with him. Michelle forced herself to remain composed, even as a confusing wave of empathy washed over her. Sasha was, without doubt, the catalyst for this heartbreak, but she was also a victim of Stephen's manipulative and potentially abusive side. Let's talk somewhere private, Michelle said, glancing meaningfully at Lucas. The three of them retreated to a small study in the villa, locking the door behind them. Sasha handed over the recorder. There's also a digital folder on my phone, she said, tapping the device. I'll send it to you. Lucas pulled out a laptop and began transferring the files. Meanwhile, Michelle took a deep breath. Sasha, she said gently, do you know if Stephen has any offshore accounts or hidden assets? Sasha chewed her lip. He never shared all the details, but he did mention something about a shell company in the Caymans. He said he used it to funnel money away from prying eyes, especially from you, so you wouldn't ask questions about big withdrawals. Michelle felt her blood run cold. So Stephen was hiding large sums of money, likely to protect himself if things went south. It was one more betrayal, one more secret in a growing list that threatened to drown her. She steeled herself. We need that information. If Lucas can trace the shell company, it might give me some bargaining power, especially if Stephen tries to blackmail me or freeze our shared assets. Sasha nodded quickly, pulling up an email thread on her phone. He used an alias, James Kincaid, for that account. He had me send some documents to that name once. Lucas's eyebrows shot up. Send me whatever you have. This is big. Over the next hour, they combed through files, audio recordings, and messages, unraveling a tangled web of deception. Not only did Stephen appear to be embezzling, or at least shifting company funds into private accounts, but he had also forged certain documents that implicated some of his business partners. The more they uncovered, the more certain Michelle became that Stephen was in over his head, desperate, dangerous, and trapped by his own machinations. By the time they finished, Michelle felt both vindicated and profoundly sickened. This was the man she married, the father of her unborn child, a man who now stood poised on the brink of financial and moral collapse, capable of hurting anyone who got in his way. She pressed a palm against her belly, silently promising her child that no matter what, she'd protect them from this chaos. Finally, Sasha rose, her expression a mixture of relief and dread. What do I do now? She asked, her voice small. Lucas took charge. I'll book you a private boat to the mainland. From there, you can catch a flight back to the States or anywhere you choose. Lay low for a while, change your number, and stay off social media. Stephen might come after you legally, but with these recordings, you should have enough leverage to ensure he backs off. Sasha's eyes welled up with tears again. "Thank you. I'm so sorry, Michelle. I never meant to—" "Stop," Michelle said, raising a hand. Her voice was weary. "Just go. Start over somewhere far away from him. That's the best apology you can give me." Sasha nodded, shoulders trembling, then quickly left to pack her things. As the door shut behind her, Michelle felt a strange weight lift from her shoulders. One piece of the puzzle was on its way out of her life. But the biggest challenge still remained, confronting Stephen one last time, armed with the truth and the leverage to protect herself and her child. That evening, Michelle received a text from Stephen. "We need to talk. Meet me at the lagoon pier at sunset. Alone." She showed it to Lucas, who immediately frowned. It could be dangerous. He's desperate. Michelle's face hardened with determination. "I'm going. He won't try anything reckless in a public area. There'll be other guests around." Lucas looked uncertain, but he couldn't dissuade her. Instead, he offered a compromise. "I'll keep watch from a distance. If anything goes wrong, I'll intervene." Agreed upon their plan, Michelle found herself at the lagoon pier just as the sun began its descent. Candles lined the railing, casting golden flecks across the water. Soft music drifted in from a nearby beach party, but here it was oddly still. Stephen stood at the far end, leaning against a post, staring into the horizon as if the answers to his problems might be found in the setting sun. Michelle approached, her footsteps echoing on the wooden planks. He turned to face her, his eyes laden with fatigue and turmoil. "Michelle," he started, voice low and thick with emotion. "Thank you for coming." She stopped a few feet away, crossing her arms protectively over her belly. "Talk," she said simply. He exhaled a shaky breath. "I messed up. You have every right to hate me. But I need you to understand this wasn't about you. It was about me. I was drowning under the pressure of keeping everything together, our lifestyle, our public image, the new business ventures. And then the baby. It just felt like one more responsibility I wasn't ready for." Michelle's jaw tightened, but she forced herself to remain calm. "So you thought having an affair, lying to me, and risking your empire was the solution?" Stephen raked a hand through his hair. "I know, it sounds insane. I guess I was just trying to feel alive again, to escape for a moment, but everything spiraled out of control." She studied him, her heart aching with both rage and a trace of lingering affection. "It's more than that. You hid finances from me, set up offshore accounts, and forged business documents. You gambled our future and our child's future on your so-called escape." He blanched. "How do you know?" Michelle finished, arching an eyebrow. "I have recordings, bank statements, messages from Sasha, and the research of a very good private investigator." "You're caught, Stephen." He paled visibly, fists clenching at his sides. "So, what are you going to do? Turn me into the authorities? Ruin me?" She stared at him for a long moment, the flickering candlelight dancing in her eyes. "I should," she said bitterly, "but I'm thinking of our child. You're still going to be a father, whether you're behind bars or not." His face contorted with a rush of conflicting emotions, fear, regret, and maybe a flicker of hope. "So you're giving me a way out?" She let out a mirthless laugh. "A way out? Don't misunderstand. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for our child. What happens to us, to this marriage, is another story." Stephen braced himself, as though expecting a final blow. "Name your terms," he said, shoulders sagging. She lifted her chin. "First, you'll sign over a portion of your assets to a trust in our child's name. Immediately. Lucas has the documents ready. Second, you'll come clean about the affair publicly or privately, but you'll tell the truth. No more rumors, No more tabloids twisting the story. And third, you'll undergo therapy. You'll get help for whatever it is that made you think all of this was acceptable. He sucked in a sharp breath, eyes wavering. And what about us? That depends on whether you can prove to me that you're willing to change, not just by talking, but by taking real, tangible steps. I'm not promising a reconciliation, but I won't shut the door completely if you show genuine remorse. Stephen seemed on the brink of tears. I am remorseful, Michelle. The first swear, I'll do anything. She turned away, gazing at the last sliver of sun dipping below the horizon. Then start by signing those documents tonight. Lucas is waiting at my villa. He hesitated, then nodded, running a trembling hand over his face. All right, he said quietly. I'll do it. They walked back together, the silence between them as thick as the humid Caribbean air. Michelle felt no triumph in his acquiescence, only a heavy sadness. Love, once so vibrant, had been tainted by dishonesty and betrayal. If this was to be the start of a new chapter, it began with the ashes of what once was. Back at the villa, Lucas had the legal documents ready. Stephen scanned them, his face grim but resolute, then signed on the dotted lines. When it was done, Michelle tucked the papers away, feeling a measure of relief. Their child's financial future was secured, regardless of how the tabloids or the courts might eventually spin the rest of the story. Her baby would be protected. Exhausted and emotionally drained, Michelle excused herself and retreated to her bedroom. She didn't invite Stephen in, and he didn't ask. That night, she tossed and turned, her mind a swirling storm of memories, good and bad. She recalled the early days of their romance, the excitement of building a life together, and then the bitter taste of the betrayal that had led them here. At dawn, Michelle woke to find a handwritten note slipped under her door. Michelle, thank you for giving me this chance to do right by you and our child. I know I don't deserve your kindness, but I will prove I'm worthy of it. I'm leaving you the Jade Lagoon so you can have space and peace. I've booked a separate room for myself at a different resort on the island, and I'm catching a flight back to the city tomorrow to face the board, the investors, everything. I'm truly sorry. I hope one day you can forgive me, Stephen. She read it twice, unsure how to feel. Was this a manipulative ploy to gain her sympathy? Or was it a genuine gesture of contrition? In any case, she was glad to be free of his presence. At least for the moment, she spent the remainder of the day resting, enjoying the tropical scenery, and conversing with Lucas about the logistics of heading home. Sasha, for her part, had already departed early that morning, leaving only a terse text of gratitude. The following evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon in a blaze of tangerine and magenta, Michelle found herself alone on the beach outside her villa. The sand was cool beneath her feet, and gentle waves lapped at the shore. This was her first moment of genuine solace since she arrived. She cradled her belly, whispering to her unborn child. She spoke of courage and love, of mistakes and forgiveness. She told the baby how fiercely she wanted to protect them from life's cruelties, how determined she was to give them a stable home, even if it meant raising them alone. Suddenly, the hush of the beach was interrupted by the sound of footsteps. She turned, expecting perhaps Lucas checking on her. But it wasn't Lucas. It was Stephen, breathless, eyes wide. "Michelle, I'm sorry," he gasped, bending over to catch his breath. "I got on a flight, but I couldn't leave without seeing you one last time." She tensed. "What do you mean you couldn't leave? Did something else happen?" He looked at her, a strange mixture of awe and regret etched across his features. "I realized how close I came to losing everything, my family, my integrity, my future. I know you don't owe me anything, but I had to tell you face to face that I'm going to fix my mistakes, no matter how long it takes. I won't run from this, and I won't run from you." Michelle felt tears prick at her eyes. The last rays of sunlight caught the glistening in them, making them shimmer. She wanted to be furious, to cling to her anger. But a small part of her, a part that had once adored this man, heard the conviction in his voice. Maybe it was too late for them, or maybe it wasn't. But right now, there was a faint glimmer of possibility. "I don't know if I can trust you," she whispered. Stephen stepped closer, cautiously. "I'll earn it back, day by day. I'll do whatever it takes." In that surreal, half-lit beach, they stood facing each other, two broken souls uncertain of what the future held. The waves continued their gentle lullaby, and for a moment they let themselves simply exist in each other's presence. No lies, no secrets, just the fragile remnants of what had once been love. And then, in a twist that nobody, not Michelle, not Stephen, and certainly not any meddling onlooker could have predicted, Michelle felt a sudden, sharp twinge in her abdomen. She gasped, clutching her belly. Stephen rushed to her side, panic flashing in his eyes. "Are you okay?" he asked frantically. Michelle grimaced, breathing through what she recognized as a contraction. It was too early, she was only 6 months along. "Something's happening," she gasped, fear gripping her heart. Stephen scooped her into his arms, sprinting up the beach toward the villa. He shouted for Lucas, who dashed out, phone already in hand. Within minutes, they were racing in an SUV to the nearest hospital on the mainland. For hours, Michelle lay in a sterile hospital room, monitors beeping, doctors and nurses moving in controlled chaos. She was on the brink of premature labor. Fear and adrenaline coursed through her veins, and in that terrifying moment, Stephen was by her side, holding her hand, whispering words of encouragement. He refused to leave, no matter how many times the doctors tried to usher him away. Michelle clung to his hand, tears streaking her face as she silently prayed for her baby's safety. Miraculously, the doctors managed to halt the labor with medication and bed rest. By the next morning, Michelle was stable, though exhausted and emotionally spent. The baby's heartbeat was strong, a testament, perhaps, to the resilience that Michelle had clung to her entire life. Stephen remained in a chair beside her bed, his head in his hands, relief etched across every line in his face. When he noticed she was awake, he stood, gently brushing a strand of hair from her brow. "I'm here," he whispered. "I'm not leaving." She searched his eyes. For once, she saw no trace of guile, no flicker of deception, just genuine relief and love, or something very close to it. In that hospital room, where life and loss seemed to precariously balance on a razor's edge, Michelle felt a shift. Perhaps, just perhaps, there was room for forgiveness. Or maybe not. Only time would tell. But for now, their unborn child still had a fighting chance, and so, maybe, did they? Conclusion, approximately 150 words. With a CTA, thank you for joining us on this rollercoaster tale of love, betrayal, and second chances. Michelle, pregnant and determined, discovered her husband's secret affair at a dazzling Caribbean resort, only to learn how deep his deceptions ran. Amid heartbreak and shocking revelations, she refused to let her unborn child become a casualty of his desperate behavior. In the end, the unthinkable happened. Michelle nearly went into premature labor, forcing them both to realize what truly mattered. Whether they find a path to forgiveness or remain worlds apart, one thing is certain: the future holds twists no one could have predicted.
From the outside, Jonathan Cole's life gleamed like a storybook fairy tale. A self-made millionaire in the heart of Manhattan, he graced glossy magazine covers, mingled with world leaders, and never missed a chance to flaunt his success. Yet behind the tall glass windows of his penthouse, tensions brewed. A secret text here, a guarded phone call there, and rumors whispered of a tangled affair that threatened to explode. Meanwhile, Alicia Cole, his pregnant wife, began to sense the cracks in her gilded cage. No one, least of all Jonathan, suspected how quickly a single online leak would unravel his carefully manicured world, ending his career in the span of one unforgettable night. Jonathan Cole's story was the stuff of modern legend. Born to middle-class parents in suburban New Jersey, he had clawed his way to a scholarship at Harvard Business School. There he'd rubbed shoulders with future magnates, forging alliances that would later propel him to the top of the finance world. By age 32, Jonathan had founded Cole Capital Ventures, a private equity firm that specialized in distressed real estate assets, buying low, selling high, and weaving magic in between. His good looks and suave charm made him a darling of the business press. Forbes ran a feature titled Young Titan, Jonathan Cole's meteoric rise, capturing him in a tailored navy suit against the panoramic backdrop of New York City. In the interview, he praised mentors such as Warren Buffett for teaching him patience and Bill Gates for demonstrating philanthropy on a global scale. The crowning moment, though, was his picture-shaking hands with Elon Musk after a speculative investment in aerospace startups. Jonathan glowed with the certainty that he was destined for greatness. It was at a fundraiser in Central Park that he first met Alicia Martinez. She was a non-profit consultant with a passion for arts education. Where Jonathan's approach to conversation was slick and polished, Alicia's was empathetic and earnest. He found her refusal to be dazzled by his reputation oddly refreshing. She was there to talk about underfunded public schools, not hedge funds or leveraged buyouts. By the end of that charity walk, Jonathan had her phone number, and she had a curious spark in her heart. In 2 short years, they were married. Alicia's parents, humble owners of a small bakery in Queens, couldn't believe their daughter was wedding a man so frequently mentioned in the Wall Street Journal. But to Alicia, Jonathan wasn't simply the millionaire. He was the person who showed up unannounced to volunteer at her community events, who wrote personal checks for after-school programs. Their wedding ceremony, held at a historic mansion overlooking the Hudson River, was a glamorous yet heartfelt affair. The tabloids brimmed with gushing coverage, Alicia radiant in lace, Jonathan dashing in a classic tuxedo, smiling as though they had discovered the secret to eternal happiness. At first, their union genuinely seemed magical. Jonathan declared that Alicia grounded him, tethered him to values he might have otherwise forgotten. She brought soul to his ambition. Life in the Cole penthouse sparkled with promise, lavish soirees for global dignitaries, altruistic ventures to build schools in underprivileged neighborhoods, and daily bursts of joy that only 2 people deeply in love could share. If only that bliss could have lasted. Life moved quickly in Jonathan's orbit. The success of Cole Capital Ventures brought new deals, new acquaintances, and inevitably new pressures. Over time, Alicia witnessed the subtle changes in her husband's routine. Invitations from the global elite poured in exclusive dinners with real estate mogul Mark Anderson, lunches at the Plaza with famed venture capitalist Lucy Goldstein, and hush-hush strategy sessions with foreign sovereign funds. While Alicia supported her husband's drive, she couldn't ignore the increasing cracks in his calendar or in his demeanor. He began coming home later, offering vague explanations about urgent meetings or unexpected negotiations. Alicia, ever understanding, reassured him that she respected his hustle. But then came the cancellations of their personal plans. A date to watch an off-Broadway show cancelled. A weekend getaway to the Hamptons postponed. Birthdays and family gatherings became second-tier priorities. The more she tried to reach him, the more she felt a certain emotional distance creeping in. Around the office, Jonathan was surrounded by loyalists and ladder climbers alike. One of them was David Lynn, his longtime friend from Harvard and now partner at Cole Capital. David had witnessed Jonathan's evolution firsthand. He noticed subtle changes too: Jonathan's sharper edge during conference calls, the tension behind his charismatic smile during business pitches. Yet David trusted that a man as resourceful as Jonathan always had it under control. Among the staff at Cole Capital Ventures was also the bright and ambitious Veronica King. A recent Wharton MBA graduate, Veronica had made waves by closing a multi-million-dollar investment in green technology within her first year at the firm. Her intelligence and striking beauty made her a conversation piece at every corporate event. Jonathan lauded her as the future face of finance, praising her for deals that posted triple returns. He found in Veronica a reflection of his younger self, hungry, driven, and fearless. Still none suspected that an alliance far different than business was about to form. At this point, Alicia had no idea who Veronica King truly was. She saw her name in passing on annual reports. Occasionally, Jonathan would mention Veronica's accomplishments, praising her for innovative thinking. Alicia would nod and smile, impressed by this rising star. In Alicia's mind, she was grateful Jonathan had formidable professionals like Veronica on his team. She never once suspected that the very power he admired in his protégé might be forging a dangerous temptation beneath their polished corporate veneer. As Alicia's pregnancy crept into her second trimester, she began noticing odd details. The first warning sign was a perfume scent she didn't recognize lingering on Jonathan's coat. She asked him about it casually, and he brushed it off, probably from a handshake at some networking event. Another red flag was how he protected his phone like a prized artifact, always face down, always locked with a new passcode. Late at night, she'd hear the faint buzz of messages, see the subtle glow of his screen as he typed back in the dark. Each time she tried to rationalize away her concerns. This was the man she loved, who donated millions to build libraries in underserved communities, who cried at the birth announcement, who once surprised her on a random Tuesday with her favorite pastries from her parents' bakery. Infidelity seemed unimaginable. Yet Alicia's heart churned with a subtle, gnawing dread. Life in the Cole penthouse had become increasingly solitary. Although Jonathan had promised to limit business travel during her pregnancy, his schedule remained as frenetic as ever. Singapore, Dubai, Paris. He was always on the go, chasing new mergers or expansions. He rarely spent more than a couple of nights at home. When he did, he was restless, glued to emails or brainstorming calls. Alicia began to feel that the only presence she could truly count on was the baby she carried. Friends from Alicia's old neighborhood in Queens reached out with concern. They missed her visits the way she used to pop in for coffee and conversation. He's just going through a busy phase, she'd reassure them. In a way, Alicia was trying to reassure herself too. Still, doubt grew every time she caught sight of that mysterious perfume or saw a new bruise-like shadow under her husband's eyes from sleepless nights. Then Alicia found something chilling, a hotel receipt tucked in Jonathan's suitcase from a high-end resort in Turks and Caicos. The date overlapped with a weekend he'd told her he was in Boston, closing a deal. She tried to confront him, but lost her nerve. Could she have misunderstood? Was it a courtesy booking for a client or staff? Her mind ran in circles, seeking a plausible explanation. Little did she know the truth was far more insidious. Veronica King was not the sort of woman who blended into the background. With ebony hair styled in a sleek bob, she carried herself with confident ease. By day, she dazzled boardrooms with crisp financial analyses, commanding respect from colleagues twice her age. By night, She appeared in social columns, alongside Manhattan's elite, her emerald dress shimmering under paparazzi flashes. She was rumored to have grown up in modest circumstances, determined to break ceilings, no matter the cost. One evening, Alicia found herself accompanying Jonathan to a charity gala, hosted by the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Proceeds would benefit underfunded art programs in public schools, an event that aligned perfectly with Alicia's passion. Upon arriving, Alicia felt the old sparkle of excitement hobnobbing with notable figures like gallery owners, educators, and philanthropic entrepreneurs. A group of Jonathan's colleagues from Cole Capital Ventures greeted them, among whom was Veronica. This was their first real introduction. "Ah, the legend herself," Veronica said, with a radiant smile, extending her hand to Alicia. "Jonathan speaks so highly of you, and all the wonderful work you do with school kids." Alicia returned the greeting, struck by Veronica's grace. She was everything Alicia imagined a high-flying finance star, to be polished, assertive, exuding an air of subtle power. When Alicia mentioned her involvement in drafting new arts curricula, Veronica listened attentively, nodding as though she truly cared. The conversation was pleasant, even warm. Yet Alicia caught a flicker of something unspoken between Veronica and Jonathan, a shared glance that felt too intimate, too layered with private meaning. Throughout the gala, Alicia couldn't shake the sense that eyes were on them, as if the rest of the guests sensed an undercurrent. She told herself she was imagining it, that she was just hormonal and overthinking, but a tiny voice inside her whispered, "Veronica King is more important to Jonathan than you realize." By the evening's end, Alicia felt unsettled. Jonathan excused himself to take a call, just when Alicia was beginning to share her feelings about an educational campaign. Veronica also vanished into the throng of socialites. Alicia sipped her sparkling water in awkward solitude, noticing a faint swirl of that same unfamiliar perfume drifting through the air. After the gala, Alicia began piecing together subtle patterns. Jonathan had singled Veronica out in so many conversations, praising her as a strategic genius, marveling at her ability to close deals in weeks that took others months. In the past, Alicia had been proud whenever Jonathan mentored bright up-and-comers. Yet with Veronica, the tone of his praise sounded tinged with personal adoration. One morning, Alicia found herself with a free schedule and decided to surprise Jonathan at his office with homemade pastries, his favorite almond croissants from her parents' bakery. It was a gesture she used to do often, back when everything felt normal. Arriving unannounced, Alicia was greeted by the wide-eyed receptionist, who stumbled through a hello, as though not entirely sure how to handle her presence. She brushed it off and headed down the glass-walled corridor to Jonathan's corner office. Outside his door, Alicia froze. Through the partial opening, she heard lowered voices. Jonathan and Veronica seemed to be in the middle of a heated discussion, but not in an angry sense, more like an emotionally charged conversation. Alicia didn't want to eavesdrop, yet she couldn't will herself to move. Then she clearly heard Veronica say, "We'll figure this out, Jonathan. I'm not giving up on you." A brief silence followed, and then Jonathan's voice, softer. "I know. Just not here." Alicia's heart hammered in her chest. She quickly retraced her steps and waited by the reception area, forcing a casual expression when Veronica exited the office moments later. Veronica paused in surprise upon seeing Alicia with the pastry box. "Oh, hi. I didn't know you'd be stopping by." Her voice carried an undercurrent of tension, though her face remained impeccably calm. Alicia's fingers clenched around the box as she managed a tight smile. Their brief exchange ended with Veronica slipping away in a swirl of designer perfume. Alicia approached Jonathan's office next. He greeted her with mild surprise and a forced grin. "Almond croissants, wow," he said, accepting the box. His eyes flicked to the door, as if confirming Veronica was gone. Alicia asked if he was all right, and Jonathan dismissed it as office stress. The entire moment felt like a carefully choreographed dance, with unspoken tensions swirling around them. That night, Alicia hardly slept, twisting the memory of Veronica's words over and over in her mind. "I'm not giving up on you." She remembered how intimate they sounded, like a promise between lovers rather than colleagues. Uncertainty blossomed, overshadowing even the joys of her pregnancy. She told herself she needed proof before leaping to conclusions that might destroy her marriage. Still, the seeds of suspicion had taken root, and the soil of her heart felt unbearably cold. Despite mounting worries, Alicia maintained her public smile as she accompanied Jonathan to another high-profile event, the annual City of Tomorrow Gala. Headlined by luminaries in real estate, tech, and philanthropy, it was a can't-miss affair for anyone jockeying for influence. Jonathan was especially eager to network with Tony McAllister, a legendary investor rumored to be launching a multi-billion-dollar fund. Alicia planned to share her vision for an educational project that integrated cutting-edge technology into underfunded schools, hoping to drum up philanthropic support. The venue was lavish, a 5-star hotel ballroom overlooking Central Park. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, and violin music mingled with the hum of high-stakes conversation. Alicia wore a flowing cobalt gown, tailored to accommodate her growing baby bump. She felt both regal and uneasy, noting the stares from various acquaintances. She wondered if she was imagining the undertones of gossip in their voices when they greeted her. About an hour into the gala, Veronica King swept in, wearing a sequined emerald dress that seemed to catch every flicker of light. She joined Jonathan, who stood near a champagne fountain, exchanging pleasantries with Tony McAllister. Veronica's arrival sparked a shift in the air. Jonathan's posture straightened, and there was a palpable current of electricity as they spoke. Alicia approached, heart thudding. She joined the circle just in time to hear Jonathan praising Veronica. She single-handedly brought in an Indonesian sovereign fund for our latest project. Imagine what she'll do next year. Veronica laughed softly, thanking him, while shooting a quick, coded look in his direction. That fleeting glance felt like a secret confession. Tony McAllister then turned to Alicia, politely inquiring about her philanthropic interests. Seizing the opportunity, she shared her concept for bridging education gaps through advanced technology. Though Tony listened, Alicia sensed a general distraction in the group, as if her words were overshadowed by the silent drama swirling between Jonathan and Veronica. She pressed on regardless, determined to stand her ground. Partway through the evening, Alicia watched from across the ballroom as Jonathan and Veronica slipped out onto the balcony. Their silhouettes formed tense outlines in the moonlight. Alicia could almost feel the strain in their stances. When they returned, Jonathan was stone-faced, while Veronica looked tearful. The rest of the gala played out in a haze, Alicia's mind spinning with questions. Why was Jonathan risking such a public display if he truly had nothing to hide? On the ride home, Jonathan was silent. Alicia debated whether to confront him. Fear of the truth won out. She remained quiet, letting the hush fill the back seat like a suffocating blanket. One thing was certain: the veneer of their marriage was cracking fast. Weeks after the gala, Alicia woke one morning to a series of text messages from unknown numbers. Each one contained the same cryptic statement: "You deserve better. Check your emails." Shaken, she logged into her personal email account and found an anonymous note with an attachment. The note read, He's not who you think he is. Trust me, I work with them. This has gone on too long. You should know. Hands trembling. Alicia opened the attachment. Her eyes widened at what she saw. Screenshots of phone call logs, countless late-night messages and photos from Veronica King, all addressed to Jonathan. Some were innocuous referencing business deals, but others were clearly personal phrases like, "Missing you last night was unforgettable and can't wait until we're alone again," leaped off the screen. A wave of shock crashed over Alicia. She felt like she was floating outside her body, watching herself shatter. She reread the messages, searching for any plausible explanation besides the obvious. Perhaps they were fabricated, or maybe there was some context missing. Yet the depth and frequency of the conversations were undeniable. Jonathan had been carrying on a secret affair with Veronica, and someone inside Cole Capital, or close to them, had decided to expose it. Through her tears, Alicia tried to remain rational. She recognized some of the timestamps. They aligned perfectly with nights Jonathan claimed to be overseas or tied up in emergency meetings. Worse, there were photos of the two at a private beach, Veronica in a sun hat, Jonathan leaning into her with a tenderness Alicia once believed was reserved only for their marriage. The date stamps matched the weekend he was supposedly in Boston. Alicia doubled over as waves of nausea seized her, uncertain if it was morning sickness or heartbreak. She clutched her phone, tears splashing onto the screen. The anonymous tip had obliterated any chance of maintaining her illusions. Betrayal now stood naked before her, leaving no room for doubt. She scrolled through the messages again, feeling her grief transform into rage. She was pregnant with this man's child, while he gallivanted with another woman behind her back. Was this what their marriage was worth? In desperation, Alicia tried calling Jonathan. No answer. She left a trembling voice message. "We need to talk. Now." Then she buried her face in a pillow, sobbing until exhaustion closed her eyes. The world felt cruel, and she wondered if she had the strength to confront what came next. Jonathan returned home late that evening to find Alicia sitting on the living room couch, the glow of a single lamp illuminating her tear-streaked face. The instant he saw her reddened eyes, he knew something had changed. She said nothing at first, only holding out her phone. He glanced at the screen and visibly paled. Silent seconds stretched as he read through the texts and pictures. Alicia noticed the flicker of guilt crossing his face before he masked it with a forced calmness. "Where did you get these?" he asked, voice low. "Does it matter?" she replied. "They're real, aren't they?" He exhaled shakily, dropping into a seat across from her. "It's complicated. Veronica and I don't want excuses." Alicia's voice trembled with quiet fury. "I want to know how you could do this while I'm pregnant with your child." Jonathan looked away, unable to meet her gaze. "It started as a mistake, Alicia. I was at a conference, we had too much to drink." "That's not an excuse," she snapped. "You lied to me for months." "No years, given these timestamps. You made me doubt my own sanity." He tried to speak, but the words choked in his throat. Instead, tears brimmed in his eyes. Alicia found it almost pitiful. She had once adored this man, who seemed larger than life. Now he looked small, lost, and pathetic, snared in the aftermath of his own betrayal. Eventually, he confessed to an ongoing affair with Veronica. They had grown close while working on high-stakes deals. Their relationship escalated during out-of-town conferences, fueled by adrenaline and the thrill of secrecy. Jonathan insisted it was never about love, but about tension relief and escaping the pressures he faced at Cole Capital. His rationale shattered the last vestiges of Alicia's sympathy. She pointed to her baby bump. "What about me? Your child. Did you ever think about the risk emotionally? Physically?" Jonathan attempted an apology, but the words felt hollow. Alicia erupted pent-up fury, spilling out in a storm of accusations. She recounted every suspicious sign she'd overlooked, how she'd supported his career, how she had endured him missing prenatal appointments. Underneath her anger lay a deep sadness for the life she thought they were building, a life that Jonathan had so casually betrayed. By the time the confrontation ended, Alicia felt emotionally gutted. Jonathan slept in his study that night, if he slept at all. She stared at her bedroom ceiling, tears soaking her pillow, wrestling with how to move forward. The next morning, she awakened to the knowledge that her heartbreak was only beginning, and so was Jonathan's downfall. In the days following Alicia's discovery, Jonathan scrambled to patch up his personal and professional worlds. He promised Veronica he would handle the situation, but that Alicia would always be his priority. He reassured Alicia that he would end the affair immediately, that he would do whatever it took to save their marriage. However, Alicia watched his panic with an air of detachment. Her trust in him was already shattered. Then came the social media explosion. One Monday morning, a popular finance gossip blog, The Street Whisperer, posted a scathing article, "Billionaire Jonathan Cole's Secret Affair, Exposed Exclusive Photos." The piece included leaked pictures of Jonathan and Veronica embracing in what appeared to be a private cabana at a tropical resort. The blog teased additional salacious details forthcoming. Within hours, major business news outlets like Bloomberg and CNBC picked up the story, albeit more cautiously. They framed it as a scandal rocking Cole Capital Ventures. Stock forums buzzed with speculation about how this might affect Jonathan's leadership and the firm's reputation. On Twitter, finance influencers dissected the ethical implications, with some calling for Jonathan to step down. Jonathan's phone lit up with calls from board members, investors, and perplexed clients. Even Lucy Goldstein, who had once praised him for philanthropic endeavors, publicly condemned his distraction from the greater mission of ethical business. The timing was disastrous. He had been on the cusp of finalizing a massive investment partnership with Tony McAllister. Now everything was in jeopardy. Alicia, reading the news coverage with weary eyes, felt a surge of anger. She had never wanted a public scandal. She would have preferred a private reckoning. But now that the world knew, she felt oddly vindicated. No longer was she alone in suspecting Jonathan's duplicity. Everyone saw it. Even so, she worried about the toll this uproar might exact on her unborn child. Less than 24 hours later, a video surfaced of Jonathan and Veronica walking hand in hand through a hotel lobby in Paris, laughing as though they didn't have a care in the world. The date stamp revealed it was just 2 months prior, around the same time Alicia had told him about her pregnancy. Public outrage soared and investors panicked. Jonathan's carefully curated brand, self-made entrepreneur, philanthropic benefactor, devoted husband, was crumbling under a relentless digital onslaught. In the midst of the uproar, Alicia received a second anonymous email. This time it contained receipts of hush money, transfers from Jonathan's personal account to an offshore entity with references to Veronica's name. The sender wrote, "He's been paying to keep certain things quiet. Thought you should know." Alicia's heart pounded as she examined the evidence. It looked like Jonathan had been funneling funds, possibly to secure Veronica's silence or cooperation. The sum was staggering enough to fund a dozen scholarships or a new arts program in any given school. The revelation further corroded Alicia's hope that Jonathan could ever be the man she once believed him to be. She confronted him the following evening, brandishing printouts of the transactions. "You're bribing her now. Is this blackmail?" "Hush money." "What else have you been hiding?" Jonathan, cornered, admitted. He'd been trying to preempt any public scandal, fearing precisely what was happening now. Veronica wanted compensation for her efforts on certain deals, he claimed. She threatened to go to the competition, or worse, to the media. "I had to protect our company, our name." "Is this your idea of protection?" Alicia spat tears stinging her eyes. "Lying, paying people off, it's disgusting. You betrayed me, betrayed your own ethics if you ever had them." Jonathan's face twisted. "Don't say that. I messed up. But everything I did was to protect us, to keep the family intact." Alicia laughed bitterly, clutching her pregnant belly. "And how's that working out for you? The world knows now. You might lose everything. And me. I don't know if there's any us left to protect." She stormed out, leaving Jonathan staring at the damning documents. On the street, Alicia's mind whirled. She felt trapped, tied by marriage, soon to be tied by parenthood, yet confronted with the ultimate betrayal. The outside world offered no solace, either its eyes fixated on the spectacle of Jonathan's downfall. For a moment she wondered if leaving the city altogether would be the only way to save her sanity. But deep in her heart, Alicia knew she had to stand and face the storm, if not for herself, then for the child growing inside her. Within a week, Jonathan's scandal dominated the business news cycle. Forbes ran an op-ed titled "The Tragic Fall of Finance's Golden Boy," analyzing how personal irresponsibility could sink even the most profitable venture. Share prices for coal, capital ventures nosedived, rattling the firm's board of directors and raising alarms among major investors. Social media took an especially brutal stance. Under the hashtag #CoalCollapse, thousands commented on Jonathan's hypocrisy, calling him a poster child for toxic corporate culture. Alicia's name also trended, though more sympathetically. Strangers on the internet expressed solidarity for a pregnant wife betrayed on a global stage. Some urged her to take him for all he's worth, while others championed her as a potential advocate for women wronged by powerful men. Within Coal Capital's walls, tension soared. The workforce split into factions. Some remained loyal to Jonathan, believing the scandal was a personal matter that shouldn't overshadow his accomplishments. Others blamed him for tarnishing the company's name, an act of negligence that jeopardized everyone's jobs. David Lynn tried to calm internal chaos, but rumors circulated that half the board wanted Jonathan removed. Veronica, for her part, took a leave of absence, claiming stress from the public harassment. No one knew if she'd be back. Amid the chaos, Alicia found herself hounded by reporters camped outside the penthouse, cameras and microphones at the ready. She refused to answer questions or open the door, feeling the walls close in on her. Her phone buzzed with calls from tabloids, offering huge sums for an exclusive interview. She declined them all. Journalists even visited her parents' bakery, peppering them with invasive questions. Her mother, Lucia, called Alicia in tears, apologizing for not knowing what to do. Alicia felt a wave of guilt. Her private tragedy had become a public spectacle, and those she loved were collateral damage. Deep inside, a new resolve formed. Alicia realized she had the power to shape her own narrative, rather than let the scandal swirl around her uncontested. She was the wronged party, she had a voice, and if she spoke, the world would listen. Whether that voice would bring healing or further destruction, she didn't yet know. But she was done sitting quietly, while Jonathan's duplicity overshadowed her entire life. During one sleepless night, Alicia stared at old photos on her phone. Her and Jonathan beaming at their wedding, her reading to children at the community center, him unveiling a giant check for a local library. The happy memories contrasted so sharply with the heartbreak she now endured. She felt betrayed not just by Jonathan, but by the entire facade of perfection they once presented. At some point, she scrolled through messages of support from friends, even strangers on social media. People urged her to fight to stand up for herself and her unborn baby. She mulled over the idea of making a public statement, something to reclaim her dignity, but also to call out Jonathan's actions without stooping to sensationalism. Her phone pinged with a text from an unknown number. "I'm sorry for what you're going through. If you need a platform to share your side, we have your back." Signed, Anna Brooks, women's advocate today. Alicia recognized the name Anna Brooks as a well-known journalist and feminist advocate. Anna's open letters had previously brought attention to issues like wage gaps and domestic abuse. The text felt genuine, a rare sign of compassion in a media landscape that often thrived on sensationalism. Alicia's heart pounded. Could she trust Anna to handle her story ethically? The next morning, Alicia called Anna. Their conversation lasted almost an hour. Anna listened without interruption, as Alicia spoke of her heartbreak, her isolation, and her fears for her future. She clarified that her aim wasn't to harm Jonathan's career out of spite, but to stand up for her own life and child. Anna offered to arrange a press conference, a controlled environment where Alicia could present her perspective. No tabloid spin, no paparazzi ambush. Alicia agreed, though the decision left her trembling with anticipation and dread. That afternoon, Alicia met with a lawyer who specialized in marital law. She wanted to understand her rights, especially with a baby on the way. While part of her considered divorce, another part still grappled with the love she'd once felt for Jonathan. The lawyer recommended caution, explaining how a public statement might influence settlement negotiations or custody issues. Alicia nodded gravely, fully aware that once she spoke publicly, there would be no going back. In just a few days, Anna Brooks secured a small event space in Midtown, not far from Times Square. The press invite was circulated discreetly among reputable journalists and media outlets. The announcement was simple: Alicia Cole, wife of Jonathan Cole, to make a statement regarding recent events. Despite the short notice, the event attracted major attention. Producers from major networks like CNN, MSNBC, and even BBC reached out, eager to broadcast the story of a betrayed wife taking a stand against her millionaire husband. Anna Brooks handled logistics, ensuring Alicia would have privacy to arrive and depart without being mobbed by cameras. In the background, Alicia's lawyer hovered uneasy about how the press conference might affect legal proceedings. Still, Alicia was resolute. This was her narrative to tell. On the eve of the press conference, Alicia worked on her statement in a quiet corner of her parents' bakery, inhaling the comforting scent of fresh bread. Her mother brought her a warm mug of chamomile tea, gently stroking her daughter's hair. "You'll do what's right," Lucia whispered, eyes filled with motherly concern. Alicia's phone buzzed with a text from Jonathan. "Please don't do this. We can fix it privately. Think of our child." She stared at the words, bitterness surging. She typed back, "It's too late for that. You should have thought of our child before you betrayed us." Then she turned off her phone, refocusing on the words she planned to read before the world. Inside her, a swirl of emotions raged: heartbreak, anger, but also an underlying sense of empowerment. She was no longer the supportive wife in the background of Jonathan's success story. She was stepping forward, pregnant and wounded, but ready to claim her truth. Whatever happened next, she promised herself she would be honest, not just for herself, but for all the women who had reached out, telling her to be strong. A brisk wind blew through Manhattan on the morning of Alicia's press conference. Cameras were already set up by the time she arrived, escorted by Anna Brooks. The modest venue could seat about 100 reporters, but more were spilling out the door, forming a crowd on the sidewalk. A hush fell as Alicia stepped onto the small stage, her baby bump subtly outlined beneath a black wrap dress. Anna stood beside her like a protective shield. Flashes lit the room. Alicia took a deep breath, heart pounding so loudly she feared the microphone would pick it up. She glanced at her note cards, then at the sea of expectant faces. She began, voice trembling at first. "Good morning. My name is Alicia Cole, and I'm here to speak about the scandal involving my husband, Jonathan Cole, and his affair with Veronica King. For weeks now, I've watched as this story has been told by tabloids, blogs, and the rumor mill. Today, I want to present the truth from my perspective." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. "I have been married to Jonathan for 3 years, and we are expecting a child. I believed in him, stood by him, built a life with him. But I recently discovered, along with the rest of the world, that he was engaged in an extramarital relationship. I have read the same articles, seen the same images. They are devastating, especially given my pregnancy." Cameras clicked incessantly, capturing every flicker of emotion on her face. Alicia continued, her voice growing steadier. "I do not share this to invite pity or to be a pawn in a public spectacle. I share it because women mothers deserve the truth when it comes to the integrity of the men we marry. And because I believe accountability matters, whether you're a private individual or a public figure who touts ethical leadership." She then revealed Jonathan's attempts to cover up the affair, even referencing hush money documents. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Alicia clarified, "I stand here not to destroy Jonathan Cole, but to claim my future and the future of my child free from deception. I believe marriage is a partnership built on trust, and once that trust is broken so thoroughly, we must face the reality of what remains." With tears brimming, Alicia concluded, "I'm asking for privacy and respect as I decide the next steps for my family. I'm grateful for the outpouring of support. My hope is that by speaking my truth, I can begin healing and perhaps encourage others facing similar betrayal to do the same." She stepped back from the podium, a trembling hush sweeping the room. Cameras zoomed in on her tear-streaked face as Anna guided her away. The press conference had lasted less than 10 minutes, but it was enough to ignite a media firestorm that would shake Jonathan Cole's empire to its core. The press conference footage went viral within hours, dominating TV headlines and flooding social media timelines. Clips of Alicia's trembling yet resolute voice played on a loop. Hashtags like #Alicia Cole and #Truth for Women trended globally. Celebrity talk show hosts weighed in praising her bravery. Prominent women's advocacy groups hailed Alicia as a hero for publicly confronting the betrayal. Jonathan Cole, meanwhile, faced an immediate backlash. Investors who had hesitated to sever ties earlier now flocked away from Cole Capital Ventures in droves, unwilling to align themselves with a leader so publicly indicted by his own wife. The firm's stock plummeted further. A joint venture with Tony McAllister was placed on indefinite hold. In a statement to the press, Tony cited concerns about leadership ethics and stability. Inside Cole Capital, the board of directors convened an emergency meeting. The consensus was grim. Jonathan's personal scandal had become a public relations nightmare. A formal vote of no confidence was scheduled for the following week to decide his future at the company he'd built from scratch. Some long-time allies still defended him, claiming that personal issues shouldn't overshadow professional achievements, but they were outnumbered by those pointing to the spiraling finances and brand damage. Jonathan retreated to the penthouse, blinds drawn, refusing to comment publicly. Even Veronica King was nowhere to be found, rumored to be on an extended stay in London. For Alicia, the whirlwind of support and media attention felt surreal. Every time she logged online, she saw strangers praising her courage, dissecting her press conference, or labeling Jonathan a monster. She had never wanted to be the face of a movement, but she felt a growing sense of responsibility to use the platform fate had handed her. In private, she grappled with heartbreak and anxiety about the future. She had awakened in a gilded cage, her wealthy lifestyle now overshadowed by betrayal. Yet the press conference had sparked something new, a sense of agency. For the first time since discovering Jonathan's affair, she could breathe freely, certain she was controlling her own path. And that path would soon demand another step, deciding whether to stay in the marriage or proceed with a legal separation. At Cole Capital Ventures, the board of directors convened the crucial vote. The meeting room had never felt so tense. David Lynn sat at one end of the table, his face grim. Over half the chairs were occupied by men and women who once revered Jonathan as a visionary. Now they stared at financial projections, plummeting into the red, accompanied by slideshow images of negative media headlines referencing the Cole scandal. The intangible toll, public distrust, moral outrage, was just as damaging. Jonathan, face pale and eyes rimmed with exhaustion, delivered a desperate plea. He promised to rectify the situation, citing therapy crisis management strategies and a vow to refocus on the firm's core mission. "I've made mistakes," he admitted hoarsely. "But our track record of delivering value can't be overlooked. We are bigger than one scandal. We can still thrive if we stay united." Some board members shifted uncomfortably. A few, including David Lynn, tried to salvage the conversation, arguing for a temporary leave of absence instead of outright dismissal. But the majority believed drastic action was required to restore credibility. A hush blanketed the room as the members cast their anonymous votes. When the tallies were read, the verdict was clear. Jonathan Cole was removed as CEO, effective immediately. Tremors of shock rippled through the halls. Cole Capital employees, once starry-eyed by Jonathan's leadership, watched him clear his office with a mix of pity and muted anger. A caretaker CEO was appointed to stabilize the ship, focusing on damage control. David Lynn glanced at Jonathan with a sorrowful expression as security escorted him out. "I'm sorry, man," David whispered. "I tried to fight for you." Jonathan nodded wordlessly, clutching a box of personal belongings. By evening, business publications around the world proclaimed Cole Capital ousts founder amid scandal. Jonathan's reign was officially over. The man who once soared across the financial stratosphere was now unemployed, disgraced, and teetering on the edge of complete ruin. Jonathan's life unspooled in disarray. With no office to report to, he holed up in the penthouse, ignoring calls from journalists. He occasionally ventured out in sunglasses and a baseball cap, only to be ambushed by paparazzi. Online comments labeled him a cautionary tale of greed and infidelity. Some articles even suggested the affair had been an open secret among New York's finance circles, fueling new levels of scrutiny. Personal finances also took a hit. Jonathan's sudden exit from Cole Capital triggered contractual penalties. He faced possible breach of contract lawsuits, tied to deals he'd spearheaded but failed to close. Frozen lines of credit-cancelled invitations to VIP events, his social and financial power dwindled. Amid his downward spiral, Jonathan tried repeatedly to contact Alicia, leaving voicemails and handwritten notes. He apologized profusely, claiming he was ready to do anything to salvage their relationship. "I'll go to counseling, sign post-nups. Anything you want. One note. Read." But Alicia remained resolute, focusing instead on her own well-being and that of her unborn child. The final blow came when Alicia's press conference was replayed in a prime-time special with a commentary panel dissecting Jonathan's betrayal. The segment ended with a heartfelt interview of Alicia by Anna Brooks, highlighting Alicia's philanthropic ambitions. Footage showed Alicia visiting an after-school program, receiving cheers from children who recognized her from news coverage. In that moment, the camera panned to Alicia's determined face, capturing her transformation from betrayed spouse to empowered advocate. Jonathan watched the segment alone, a half-finished bottle of scotch by his side. He saw how the public now regarded Alicia with admiration, a stark contrast to his own vilification. In a moment of clarity, he realized he was witnessing the rise of a woman who had once stood quietly beside him, someone he'd taken for granted. Shattered by regret, he continued drinking until the lights of the penthouse blurred into darkness. While Jonathan sank deeper, Alicia was busy forging a new path. Through Anna Brooks's media connections and her own philanthropic background, she organized a fundraiser for underprivileged schools. The event was set to be a smaller, more authentic affair than the high-gloss galas Jonathan once frequented. The proceeds would go toward bridging the digital divide in low-income neighborhoods, an initiative Alicia had championed long before the scandal. As the date approached, Alicia found herself gaining supporters from unexpected places. Tony McAllister, once interested in partnering with Jonathan, reached out privately. He expressed admiration for Alicia's courage and inquired if she'd accept a donation from his philanthropic foundation. She graciously agreed, grateful for the unwavering backing. Others in the business world, previously enthralled by Jonathan, now saw Alicia as an emerging figure with moral authority. Invitations to speak at leadership panels trickled in ironically, offering her the spotlight once promised to her husband. Meanwhile, Alicia took steps to secure her future. Working with a lawyer, she prepared for a potential divorce filing. She also met with a financial advisor, ensuring she understood the complexities of Jonathan's assets and any marital entitlements. Each step felt daunting, yet liberating, as she realized she no longer had to abide by the illusions of a perfect marriage. In a surprising twist, David Lynn approached Alicia discreetly. He apologized on behalf of Cole Capital, acknowledging that many within the firm admired her. "We know Jonathan's downfall was his own doing," David admitted. "We'd like to work with you in some capacity, maybe an advisory role on the philanthropic side." Alicia hesitated, uncertain about maintaining ties to an institution so entangled with Jonathan's betrayal. Still, she considered the possibility of effecting positive change from within. Days turned into weeks as Alicia balanced philanthropic planning, potential legal battles, and the emotional toll of pregnancy. Through it all, she maintained her composure, fueled by a sense of purpose. While part of her still grieved the betrayal, she also recognized a budding strength. Her identity was no longer solely Mrs. Jonathan Cole. She was Alicia Cole, a force in her own right. One brisk afternoon, as Alicia returned to her parents' bakery for a quiet meeting with donors, she found Jonathan waiting near the doorway, slumped against a lamppost. He appeared disheveled, unshaven eyes bloodshot, wearing a crumpled blazer. The sight startled her, stirring both pity and residual anger. "Please," he said, voice strained. "Just a moment of your time." She considered walking past him, but compassion nudged her to pause. She let him follow her inside, where they settled at a back table amid the comforting aroma of fresh pastries. Lucia glanced over worriedly from the counter, but respected her daughter's privacy. Jonathan exhaled shakily. "I've lost everything, my job, my reputation. I can't lose you too. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'm begging you to give me another chance." Alicia felt tears prick her eyes, though she kept her composure. "Another chance to do what? You've lied to me, cheated on me, humiliated me publicly." He pressed a trembling hand to his forehead. "I know. I was an idiot. I was greedy, arrogant. The money, the power, it consumed me. Veronica was just a symptom of my own weaknesses." "That doesn't erase what you did," Alicia murmured. "It doesn't take back the night you were with her while I lay at home, excited to share baby news with you. It doesn't undo all the heartbreak." Jonathan lowered his head, tears slipping down his cheeks. Alicia recognized genuine remorse in his eyes, but she also knew it might be too late. "If you need me to sign anything," he whispered, "custody agreements, child support, I'll do it. I just want to be part of the baby's life." The request struck a chord deep within Alicia. Their child deserved a father, but was Jonathan capable of the responsibility? She wrestled with conflicting emotions, the memory of happier times, and the fresh sting of betrayal. Finally, she said, "I can't make that decision right now. I need time. But this much is clear. You have to deal with the consequences of what you've done on your own." Jonathan nodded, head bowed in defeat. Before leaving, he offered a small envelope. "In case you want to reach me. That's my new number." Then he slipped out into the cold afternoon, a broken man, still clinging to a shred of hope. In the following weeks, Alicia immersed herself in planning her fundraiser, channeling her emotions into a cause that symbolized new beginnings. The event space was modest, a converted art gallery in Brooklyn, yet the atmosphere radiated warmth. Donors included local business owners, educators, and some philanthropic heavyweights. Alicia opened the evening by sharing her own story, not focusing on the scandal, but on the importance of forging a brighter future for the next generation. The fundraiser turned into a soaring success, raising more funds than Alicia had anticipated. Attendees praised her vision, and media coverage highlighted her commitment to positive change, contrasting starkly with Jonathan's tarnished reputation. Standing at the podium, Alicia felt a rush of empowerment. As she thanked the crowd, her hand drifted to her baby bump. She realized that in building a better world for others, she was also building a better world for her child. Not long after Alicia filed for legal separation, citing irreconcilable differences. The move was symbolic as much as legal, a declaration that she was no longer tethered to Jonathan's fate. Public interest in the scandal waned, replaced by fresh headlines as the news cycle moved on. Life was still challenging, but Alicia awoke each morning with a renewed sense of purpose, surrounded by supportive friends and family. As for Jonathan, rumors suggested he had entered therapy and was considering launching a smaller financial consultancy if he could find backers. Some whispered that he was volunteering at a youth center, seeking to rediscover the philanthropic spark that once defined him. Whether these rumors were genuine or just strategic, Alicia didn't know. Occasionally she thought about letting him be involved with the child, but she needed reassurance that he had truly changed. Alicia's belly grew, and so did her resolve. She had discovered her voice in the midst of betrayal, learning that her worth wasn't measured by a man's success or the illusions they spun together. The conclusion of this saga was not a bitter end, but rather the blossoming of her independence. She carried with her the lessons of heartbreak, the joy of impending motherhood, and a determination to rise above any scandal that dared to overshadow her future. The downfall of Jonathan Cole and the rise of Alicia Cole stand as a testament to life's unpredictable turns. A single leak online dragged a powerhouse billionaire into ruin, yet it also became a spark for his pregnant wife to find her voice, her mission, and her freedom. Betrayal can devastate, but it can also illuminate truths we've long buried. Alicia transformed her heartbreak into a crusade for better opportunities, showing that even in the darkest moments, we have the power to rebuild and sometimes shine brighter than ever before. If this story moved, you don't let it end here. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more real-life drama and compelling narratives. Your support helps us continue bringing stories of resilience, empowerment, and the triumph of the human spirit. Stay tuned for our next riveting tale, because when one door closes, another door swings open, often revealing a whole new world of possibilities. Meanwhile, Alicia Cole, his pregnant wife, began to sense the cracks in her gilded cage. No one, least of all Jonathan, suspected how quickly a single online leak would unravel his carefully manicured world, ending his career in the span of one unforgettable night. Jonathan Cole's story was the stuff of modern legend. Born to middle-class parents in suburban New Jersey, he had clawed his way to a scholarship at Harvard Business School. There he'd rubbed shoulders with future magnates, forging alliances that would later propel him to the top of the finance world. By age 32, Jonathan had founded Cole Capital Ventures, a private equity firm that specialized in distressed real estate assets, buying low, selling high, and weaving magic in between. His good looks and suave charm made him a darling of the business press. Forbes ran a feature titled Young Titan, Jonathan Cole's meteoric rise, capturing him in a tailored navy suit against the panoramic backdrop of New York City. In the interview, he praised mentors such as Warren Buffett for teaching him patience and Bill Gates for demonstrating philanthropy on a global scale. The crowning moment, though, was his picture-shaking hands with Elon Musk after a speculative investment in aerospace startups. Jonathan glowed with the certainty that he was destined for greatness. It was at a fundraiser in Central Park that he first met Alicia Martinez. She was a non-profit consultant with a passion for arts education. Where Jonathan's approach to conversation was slick and polished, Alicia's was empathetic and earnest. He found her refusal to be dazzled by his reputation oddly refreshing. She was there to talk about underfunded public schools, not hedge funds or leveraged buyouts. By the end of that charity walk, Jonathan had her phone number, and she had a curious spark in her heart. In 2 short years, they were married. Alicia's parents, humble owners of a small bakery in Queens, couldn't believe their daughter was wedding a man so frequently mentioned in the Wall Street Journal. But to Alicia, Jonathan wasn't simply the millionaire. He was the person who showed up unannounced to volunteer at her community events, who wrote personal checks for after-school programs. Their wedding ceremony, held at a historic mansion overlooking the Hudson River, was a glamorous yet heartfelt affair. The tabloids brimmed with gushing coverage, Alicia radiant in lace, Jonathan dashing in a classic tuxedo, smiling as though they had discovered the secret to eternal happiness. At first, their union genuinely seemed magical. Jonathan declared that Alicia grounded him, tethered him to values he might have otherwise forgotten. She brought soul to his ambition. Life in the Cole penthouse sparkled with promise, lavish soirees for global dignitaries, altruistic ventures to build schools in underprivileged neighborhoods, and daily bursts of joy that only two people deeply in love could share. If only that bliss could have lasted. Life moved quickly in Jonathan's orbit. The success of Cole Capital Ventures brought new deals, new acquaintances, and inevitably new pressures. Over time, Alicia witnessed the subtle changes in her husband's routine. Invitations from the global elite poured in exclusive dinners with real estate mogul Mark Anderson, lunches at the Plaza with famed venture capitalist Lucy Goldstein, and hush-hush strategy sessions with foreign sovereign funds. While Alicia supported her husband's drive, she couldn't ignore the increasing cracks in his calendar or in his demeanor. He began coming home later, offering vague explanations about urgent meetings or unexpected negotiations. Alicia, ever understanding, reassured him that she respected his hustle. But then came the cancellations of their personal plans. A date to watch an off-Broadway show cancelled. A weekend getaway to the Hamptons postponed. Birthdays and family gatherings became second-tier priorities. The more she tried to reach him, the more she felt a certain emotional distance creeping in. Around the office, Jonathan was surrounded by loyalists and ladder climbers alike. One of them was David Lynn, his longtime friend from Harvard and now partner at Cole Capital. David had witnessed Jonathan's evolution firsthand. He noticed subtle changes too, Jonathan's sharper edge during conference calls, the tension behind his charismatic smile during business pitches. Yet David trusted that a man as resourceful as Jonathan always had it under control. Among the staff at Cole Capital Ventures was also the bright and ambitious Veronica King. A recent Wharton MBA graduate, Veronica had made waves by closing a multi-million-dollar investment in green technology within her first year at the firm. Her intelligence and striking beauty made her a conversation piece at every corporate event. Jonathan lauded her as the future face of finance, praising her for deals that posted triple returns. He found in Veronica a reflection of his younger self, hungry, driven, and fearless. Still none suspected that an alliance far different than business was about to form. At this point, Alicia had no idea who Veronica King truly was. She saw her name in passing on annual reports. Occasionally, Jonathan would mention Veronica's accomplishments, praising her for innovative thinking. Alicia would nod and smile, impressed by this rising star. In Alicia's mind, she was grateful Jonathan had formidable professionals like Veronica on his team. She never once suspected that the very power he admired in his protégé might be forging a dangerous temptation beneath their polished corporate veneer. As Alicia's pregnancy crept into her second trimester, she began noticing odd details. The first warning sign was a perfume scent she didn't recognize lingering on Jonathan's coat. She asked him about it casually, and he brushed it off, probably from a handshake at some networking event. Another red flag was how he protected his phone like a prized artifact, always face down, always locked with a new passcode. Late at night, she'd hear the faint buzz of messages, see the subtle glow of his screen as he typed back in the dark. Each time she tried to rationalize away her concerns. This was the man she loved, who donated millions to build libraries in underserved communities, who cried at the birth announcement, who once surprised her on a random Tuesday with her favorite pastries from her parents' bakery. Infidelity seemed unimaginable. Yet Alicia's heart churned with a subtle, gnawing dread. Life in the Cole penthouse had become increasingly solitary. Although Jonathan had promised to limit business travel during her pregnancy, his schedule remained as frenetic as ever. Singapore, Dubai, Paris. He was always on the go, chasing new mergers or expansions. He rarely spent more than a couple of nights at home. When he did, he was restless, glued to emails or brainstorming calls. Alicia began to feel that the only presence she could truly count on was the baby she carried. Friends from Alicia's old neighborhood in Queens reached out with concern. They missed her visits the way she used to pop in for coffee and conversation. "He's just going through a busy phase," she'd reassure them. In a way, Alicia was trying to reassure herself too. Still, doubt grew every time she caught sight of that mysterious perfume, or saw a new bruise-like shadow under her husband's eyes from sleepless nights. Then Alicia found something chilling, a hotel receipt tucked in Jonathan's suitcase from a high-end resort in Turks and Caicos. The date overlapped with a weekend he'd told her he was in Boston, closing a deal. She tried to confront him, but lost her nerve. Could she have misunderstood? Was it a courtesy booking for a client or staff? Her mind ran in circles, seeking a plausible explanation. Little did she know the truth was far more insidious. Veronica King was not the sort of woman who blended into the background. With ebony hair styled in a sleek bob, she carried herself with confident ease. By day, she dazzled boardrooms with crisp financial analyses, commanding respect from colleagues twice her age. By night, she appeared in social columns alongside Manhattan's elite, her emerald dress shimmering under paparazzi flashes. She was rumored to have grown up in modest circumstances, determined to break ceilings, no matter the cost. One evening, Alicia found herself accompanying Jonathan to a charity gala, hosted by the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Proceeds would benefit underfunded art programs in public schools, an event that aligned perfectly with Alicia's passion. Upon arriving, Alicia felt the old sparkle of excitement hobnobbing with notable figures like gallery owners, educators, and philanthropic entrepreneurs. A group of Jonathan's colleagues from Cole Capital Ventures greeted them, among whom was Veronica. This was their first real introduction. "Ah, the legend herself," Veronica said, with a radiant smile, extending her hand to Alicia. "Jonathan speaks so highly of you, and all the wonderful work you do with school kids." Alicia returned the greeting, struck by Veronica's grace. She was everything Alicia imagined a high-flying finance star, to be polished, assertive, exuding an air of subtle power. When Alicia mentioned her involvement in drafting new arts curricula, Veronica listened attentively, nodding as though she truly cared. The conversation was pleasant, even warm. Yet Alicia caught a flicker of something unspoken between Veronica and Jonathan, a shared glance that felt too intimate, too layered with private meaning. Throughout the gala, Alicia couldn't shake the sense that eyes were on them, as if the rest of the guests sensed an undercurrent. She told herself she was imagining it, that she was just hormonal and overthinking, but a tiny voice inside her whispered, "Veronica King is more important to Jonathan than you realize." By the evening's end, Alicia felt unsettled. Jonathan excused himself to take a call, just when Alicia was beginning to share her feelings about an educational campaign. Veronica also vanished into the throng of socialites. Alicia sipped her sparkling water in awkward solitude, noticing a faint swirl of that same unfamiliar perfume drifting through the air. After the gala, Alicia began piecing together subtle patterns. Jonathan had singled Veronica out in so many conversations, praising her as a strategic genius, marveling at her ability to close deals in weeks that took others months. In the past, Alicia had been proud whenever Jonathan mentored bright up-and-comers. Yet with Veronica, the tone of his praise sounded tinged with personal adoration. One morning, Alicia found herself with a free schedule and decided to surprise Jonathan at his office with homemade pastries, his favorite almond croissants from her parents' bakery. It was a gesture she used to do often, back when everything felt normal. Arriving unannounced, Alicia was greeted by the wide-eyed receptionist, who stumbled through a hello, as though not entirely sure how to handle her presence. She brushed it off and headed down the glass-walled corridor to Jonathan's corner office. Outside his door, Alicia froze. Through the partial opening, she heard lowered voices. Jonathan and Veronica seemed to be in the middle of a heated discussion, but not in an angry sense, more like an emotionally charged conversation. Alicia didn't want to eavesdrop, yet she couldn't will herself to move. Then she clearly heard Veronica say, "We'll figure this out, Jonathan. I'm not giving up on you." A brief silence followed, and then Jonathan's voice, softer. "I know. Just not here." Alicia's heart hammered in her chest. She quickly retraced her steps and waited by the reception area, forcing a casual expression when Veronica exited the office moments later. Veronica paused in surprise upon seeing Alicia with the pastry box. "Oh, hi. I didn't know you'd be stopping by." Her voice carried an undercurrent of tension, though her face remained impeccably calm. Alicia's fingers clenched around the box as she managed a tight smile. Their brief exchange ended with Veronica slipping away in a swirl of designer perfume. Alicia approached Jonathan's office next. He greeted her with mild surprise and a forced grin. "Almond croissants, wow," he said, accepting the box. His eyes flicked to the door, as if confirming Veronica was gone. Alicia asked if he was all right, and Jonathan dismissed it as office stress. The entire moment felt like a carefully choreographed dance, with unspoken tensions swirling around them. That night, Alicia hardly slept, twisting the memory of Veronica's words over and over in her mind. "I'm not giving up on you." She remembered how intimate they sounded, like a promise between lovers rather than colleagues. Uncertainty blossomed, overshadowing even the joys of her pregnancy. She told herself she needed proof before leaping to conclusions that might destroy her marriage. Still, the seeds of suspicion had taken root, and the soil of her heart felt unbearably cold. Despite mounting worries, Alicia maintained her public smile as she accompanied Jonathan to another high-profile event, the annual City of Tomorrow Gala. Headlined by luminaries in real estate, tech, and philanthropy, it was a can't-miss affair for anyone jockeying for influence. Jonathan was especially eager to network with Tony McAllister, a legendary investor rumored to be launching a multi-billion-dollar fund. Alicia planned to share her vision for an educational project that integrated cutting-edge technology into underfunded schools, hoping to drum up philanthropic support. The venue was lavish, a 5-star hotel ballroom overlooking Central Park. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, and violin music mingled with the hum of high-stakes conversation. Alicia wore a flowing cobalt gown, tailored to accommodate her growing baby bump. She felt both regal and uneasy, noting the stares from various acquaintances. She wondered if she was imagining the undertones of gossip in their voices when they greeted her. About an hour into the gala, Veronica King swept in, wearing a sequined emerald dress that seemed to catch every flicker of light. She joined Jonathan, who stood near a champagne fountain, exchanging pleasantries with Tony McAllister. Veronica's arrival sparked a shift in the air. Jonathan's posture straightened, and there was a palpable current of electricity as they spoke. Alicia approached, heart thudding. She joined the circle just in time to hear Jonathan praising Veronica. She single-handedly brought in an Indonesian sovereign fund for our latest project. Imagine what she'll do next year." Veronica laughed softly, thanking him, while shooting a quick, coded look in his direction. That fleeting glance felt like a secret confession. Tony McAllister then turned to Alicia, politely inquiring about her philanthropic interests. Seizing the opportunity, she shared her concept for bridging education gaps through advanced technology. Though Tony listened, Alicia sensed a general distraction in the group, as if her words were overshadowed by the silent drama swirling between Jonathan and Veronica. She pressed on regardless, determined to stand her ground.